Hey guys, how are you guys doing? I'm going to walk you through a Challenger Zac game I played yesterday. This was an interesting game because it combined a lot of the early game elements that will win you games in the current meta. Focusing on the early game, not really putting too much emphasis on the late game. This is the type of jungle strategy you'll see most Challenger players use right now, where you're focusing on primarily pressuring the map in areas that will not necessarily give you a good late game, but simply just crush the early game and lead to a really fast and easy win. And this will focus primarily on my decision making this game. We're not going to cover too much on the enemy team other than what they do in mistakes involving me and my team. So, one thing that I've noticed recently is that invades, if possible, yield crazy snowball potential. This has always been the case in a lot of metas, but if you have a really good early game, say one or two champions with stuns, you should invade, like the enemy team invaded, but we had no one on this side of the map. And because our Rumble was disconnected and unable to leash me for potentially the early game, I decided to hold the bot side, just watch the entrances, and get a good, nice leash from my bot lane. When you're playing Zac Jungle, you can start kind of wherever you want. I prefer to get a good leash from my bot lane since I run a lot of CDR on my page. Even though I said that I have a tendency to focus on the early game and Challenger as a jungler, I also plan for the late game when possible. I mean, you want to give your team the best early edge, but sometimes the game will go to late. But for Zac, one of the best rune setups that you can currently take actually involves taking 30% CDR per level so that you can focus on going straight tank items, but still late game hit 40% CDR if the game goes to late. But you still get early CDR items. I'll run you through why you get the certain items that you do. So I start Krugs. You can smite early and take less damage in the jungle, but if you suspect that the enemy jungler or their bot lane will contest, you should save your smite. So if you watched it the whole time and you knew they didn't get a ward down, they probably won't invade it. But if you early smite to try to take less damage from the jungle monsters on the Krug camp, you definitely have a chance of having it stolen. So I have to pull the camp over here because their Lissandra has the pushing advantage on mid. It's a Lissandra versus a Fizz. Early levels, she's pushing the Fizz to the tower. I smited that, but I did not kill the ward Lissandra had. And this is going to be a quick pause because this is really important to remember. Early trinket wards do not last very long at all. Just because you see them place a trinket ward doesn't mean you have to like immediately buy a pink ward and clear it, or use your Raptor smited buff to clear out vision. I knew she placed that ward. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to stay over here. I'm not ganking yet. I don't care if they have vision of my Raptors. They already saw me. No point in wasting that buff on a ward that won't involve my gameplay. Same thing goes for pink wards and stuff early game. If you know where their pink wards are, you don't have to just go and kill it because that could be a fight that you might not win if you don't know where their jungler is. So if you see them place a pink, you don't always just immediately want to go and kill it. You make a note of it, you come back when you know they absolutely cannot stop you, because pink wards usually will just mean a massive fight between you and their jungler and maybe mid laner, and you can use that to your advantage over your pink wards, and they're going to try to use it over theirs. I'm doing a pretty straightforward clear. We're just doing camp to camp, nothing fancy here. If I don't let my bot lane take a jungle camp, this is generally the way you do it. You start on one side, do every camp. Zac has got really good sustain, and you're going to hit level 4 after this full clear, which is amazing, because that's when Zac's ganks actually get pretty strong. Level 3 ganks from Zac, not very good. Because you're maxing your E first and the range gets a lot further, your ganking power gets stronger the more you level up. So you shouldn't try to level 3 gank as Zac because it's just not as strong as level 4, and he farms pretty well, and he's a tank jungler, so his mid game's really strong. Now, while we've been watching my character and just kind of, going in autopilot in terms of commentary and whatnot, as a jungler, you absolutely need to be panning between your lanes. So you probably can't see my first person because this is recorded in the third person, and that's good because we have the benefit of Omnivision if we want. But when you're in this actual game, you're looking at the minimap, but you're also going to be tabbing through your teammates. You can use this through the F1 to F5 keys when you're in game. Just corresponds with your team, and you will be able to get a better grasp of what's happening. So in other words, I could hit the hotkey to see Rumble top lane and immediately hit spacebar to center the camera back on myself. This is a quick way to jungle while looking at what your team is doing using the F1 keys and spacebar. So you can, like, in between spells and moving very quickly, just using the keyboard, figure out what's going on. Just scroll through the lanes. Now, of course, we're paused, and it's easier to do it when there's a lot of downtime, or you're just simply not doing it as much. It's pretty easy to neglect it, but it's really important as a jungler to constantly know what's going on, because you have to plan ahead. It takes a long time to go from top lane to bot lane. You're typically going to clear the side of the jungle. You're going to be ganking soon. So because I farm bot side first and then top side second, unless I'm going to recall, I'm going to be top side to pressure. Because there was no lane to immediately gank, doesn't mean I should just immediately recall. I use this to my advantage because we look top lane, Rumble pushed the Pantheon out of lane. We pretty much saw him recall. He was not in a position to just run into the jungle and fight me. Mid lane, it looks like Fizz shoved in Lissandra as well, and she also had an early recall. So just because I could not early gank doesn't mean I can't do anything. I use both of my early trinket wards in the enemy Olaf's jungle. We put it one on his Raptor camp, which might be cleared by his Raptor buff. We also snuck one over here, which would see their Olaf potentially path towards top lane. And because of Rumble's ward right here, Rumble probably can't get ganked right now. There's just such a little amount of space that Olaf could actually gank top. You'd have to run through there, through the lane. Just unlikely, because their jungler is probably going to clear the jungle before ganking, simply because that's an efficient way to play the game. But on my way out, I don't need to recall just yet. I can't quite buy what I want to buy. So I wait around mid, and I try to wait in an area where she won't have vision of me. And it gets hard to put a grasp on exactly what they can see versus what you can see. But you just have to factor in, generally this area is going to be fog for them unless they're either running around the corner or they have a ward. So you can move upwards to around here to gank a Zac on mid lane, depending on where the minions are and where the champion is. So I'm moving just out of range, waiting for the Fizz to come back. I don't think this is going to be a successful gank, but I want to move into my jungle. It looks like we had just spotted Olaf bot lane on a ward, the pink ward. So I need to start working my way down there anyways. If I jump the gun too early, Fizz is not here yet. So not every gank has to necessarily be a kill for it to be successful. But there are situations where, you know, if you're going for too many ganks and your jungle camps are up, you're going to miss out on some golden experience in the long run. So we're just going to get a nice big chunk onto the Lissandra. Since Fizz had just gone and come back to lane and she did the same, she's probably not in a position where she wants to go back anytime soon. Meanwhile, Olaf did a really aggressive play, basically dove my bot lane, died under the tower. I'm moving my way down towards there to continue to pressure. But my gank in this Fizz versus Lissandra matchup will be a game changer because Fizz has a hard time poking Lissandra. Lissandra's got an easy time poking Fizz, but Fizz has the burst in this matchup to basically kill Lissandra before she can kill Fizz as long as Lissandra's low enough. So just by ganking that lane, it kind of tilts it in our favor by a tremendous amount, knowing the matchup. I was going to go towards bottom, realized they had the river crab, so what you can do as Zac, which is kind of amusing, is, let's see if they did get a glimmer of that. Sometimes you can mess it up and they can actually see you when you're doing this as Zac, but basically, if they have the river crab, you can still jump over from like here to there or there to there and avoid any pressure from the river crab. All vision. I haven't done it yet. Thought I had done it. Let's look. I might have gotten spotted because I might have moved too close. I just want to see. Where are you? Hey, we didn't get spotted. But if you move a little bit too close, because it's not exactly just this circle for vision, it's a little bit further out. But, you know, some junglers can go over the wall like Rek'Sai and whatnot, and so the river crab's not foolproof vision. And I was hoping that they would be like, oh, you know, Zac's not coming to gank us because we have vision in the river and river crab. But, you know, sometimes if they had overstayed, they were low enough that I could probably jump on the gen and kill him since he didn't have sums. So we were taking a risk here. Decided to go into his jungle to just, you know, check out his camps. Olaf had died, so this would be a good moment to counter jungle him. His Gromp was gone, and I decided after seeing the Bard run towards mid that it was probably in my best interest to counter gank this simply because, well, Fizz is going to do a lot of damage. This Bard's missing a lot of health, also level 3. And so I sit in this bush, wait. Patience is key, my friends, because if we walked out of the bush too early, Bard would get spooked and just, you know, take the magical journey up to Lissandra. So we waited until Bard was all nice and comfy in this bush, and then Fizz pretended like, oh, hey, you know, I'm going to go face check this bush or go and ward. So a lot of mind games coming down here. Bard was probably waiting for Fizz to face check, and of course we were just one step ahead of them since we had vision there. Now, the really big kicker there was a pink ward in the bush. I I don't know if Bard just like didn't attack move into the bush, just didn't see it all. But yeah, that was a pretty basic, easy kill. I think that guy might have been autofilled. That's become almost a word of flame these days. Like, oh, that guy's autofilled. Like, you know, he doesn't normally play that position, so that's why it's that bad. But basically in Challenger, it's actually a legitimate strategy nowadays is to like pressure the lanes that are autofilled because they're less experienced and you can probably snowball more off that. Really bad E for me. I was hoping to interrupt the Lissandra E before she was able to take it, but I instead should have just used my E on the destination of her E instead of trying to interrupt it. But the idea is there. When Lissandra's E is going, if you CC her, she might not have enough time to reactivate to take it. So that can be a dead Lissandra if she waits too long, if she's low. Anyways, so we haven't even gone back yet. Their Olaf died and has had the chance to go back. Woo, words. But I've got 1,500 gold. You don't want to wait any longer than this. I wanted to clear at least one side of my jungle before going back, though, just to be as efficient as possible. So while I'm back in the base, oh man, did I really go for top? I think it was because I started a recall, and then you see the assist ping. Rumble wanted me to potentially dive this. If I was healthier, this would for sure be the right place to be right now. I still have my passive up, so I could potentially, you know, get tower aggro, sack myself, flash out at the last second and die, but get revived from my blobs. So there's some playmaking here. I mean, most of their junglers this low should never think about this. But their team's a little bit behind. We've been getting a lot of summoners burned. Our top laner was a little bit ahead. But once we get into the bush, it's pretty clear that unless Pantheon just like runs out and tries to fight Rumble, it's not a good idea. So we just started a recall. If Pantheon like started fighting Rumble, we would stop it and then you know, try to fight them. But don't overstay. It was a risky idea. So on my first buy, this is where it really differs when you play Zac Jungle compared to other junglers. You're really prioritizing CDR. With my current setup, let's see what my CDR is right now, 28.34%. 20% of that is from CDR boots and the early Kindle gem. And the more abilities you cast as Zac, well, the more blobs you're going to get, the more sustain you're getting, and the W goes off a cooldown by 1 second per blob you pick up. So you can do a faster jungle clear and have better sustain by prioritizing CDR and Zac. Plus your ganks are better. Your E being a lower cooldown is your gap closing tool. If you can gank with your E and then burn their flash, and then you have enough CDR that you can E again later on, it's just crazy. So a lot of stuff is happening. I'm kind of guilty sometimes of just, you know, after a recall, immediately going to a jungle camp, just pathing to that raptor camp, not even looking at where your team is rotating, because, you know, when your red or blue is up, as a jungler, you can get to the tendency of just trying to remove it from the map before their jungler can counter jungle you. And, you know, when you're ganking with red, it's better than ganking without red. So there's some logic behind it, but sometimes it's a good idea just from a recall to immediately go to a lane and pressure it if they need your help. But if you can't help anyone after, you know, going to the jungle like I did, and your lanes are already pressuring and recalling, it's a good idea to hold a lane. Don't always do this because it gives pretty easy vision of yourself. I end up like playing pretty reserved here because I wasn't 100% sure that Lissandra couldn't just chunk me and burn my passive, and that's not so great because we didn't know where Olaf was at that very moment. We knew Fizz made a play bot lane, I think, and their jungler was missing, and Lissandra was missing. So I go into my jungle. Lo and behold, my blue was taken. I was counter jungled. So because I showed myself mid lane, we were, you know, one of our sides of the jungle was sacked. He saw me mid, knew I couldn't just like find him in the jungle. Plus Olaf has the dueling matchup advantage over me because he can run out of my CC and just beat me in a 1v1 and raw damage. And I'm not tanky enough to withstand it. So Olaf's not too afraid. If he spots me mid holding that lane, you know, he's going to counter jungle you. So that can work to your advantage too. If the enemy jungler is just constantly holding lanes, you can dip into his jungle, get good vision while you know exactly where he is, and counter jungle him. But there was a massive wave mid lane. I mean, it was just a huge wave. I still think it was probably worth it because we not only stopped the tower from taking a lot of damage while Fizz is roaming, but we got a huge chunk of experience here. Wherever you have a pink ward, I mean, this is just, you know for sure that you can just bush camp here, wait for something to happen. The enemy team, I mean, they're pretty tilted at this point. Our bot lane has been pressuring really well. We've been kind of making impactful plays here and there. Like, we got Bard killed once around mid. But we're kind of feeding off the advantage of our team playing pretty well, and we're focusing on trying to gank whenever possible. This dude's really overextended. We're just going to jump out here. Wasn't the best position for me to start casting my E. Like, we saw their vision. They couldn't quite see me yet. But by the time I started my E ability, thinking that we could hit the gen while my team was going in, I could either cancel it, get half the cooldown refunded, and try to reposition, or I could try to jump in like this. So we start to try to jump in, and Jin's going to flash. No, he didn't flash. It was just the movement speed boost from Bard and himself. So we tried to use our jump, but I mean, we just miscalculated based on the movement speed. Both TPs are coming in. Mid lane and our top lane are both TPing, I believe. We're going to re-engage this. A lot of games in Challenger, you see like based on one teleport, like one team will be chasing the other, a TP comes in on the team that is running, suddenly they're the ones turning around and chasing. So just because we lose one person doesn't exactly mean we'll lose this, because we have an extra person coming in with an ultimate, and our cooldowns are still up, and Olaf, you know, of course, is out of mana now, used his ultimate, Bard abilities might be on cooldown. So it kind of, fights should ebb and flow based on cooldowns, who's coming to the fight, who still has ultimate, positioning. Like sometimes one person will overextend past the others at the very last second. You and your team can turn and fight. So a lot of Challenger fights are just flat out massive skirmishes. Maybe not 5-on-5 fights, but 2v2, 3v3s, 4v4s, sometimes 1v1s. And these are good. Like, these are the type of fights you want to look for when your team is already ahead. You shouldn't avoid these fights when your team is winning. Of course, you want to try to mechanically play this well, but at the same time, these are the fights that will just secure the victory. I still have my passive. I mean, I probably wouldn't have jumped in like that if I didn't have my passive. Our team is still going. And this is just, well, you know, Challenger players at AA might not be the perfect players. We're making mistakes here and there. We actually canceled our E thinking we were going to escape, but before getting that kill, because we thought our teammate was going to kill the Bard, but I had to cancel my E. And my E, you know, it goes on half the cooldown when you cancel it, but it still wasn't going to be up in time to kill Bard before Jin got close enough to harass me off of it. So we have to burn flash to W and kill the Bard. After that, we know that their team is definitely licking their wounds. I wanted to get some vision down, and after a big play like that, the enemy team could counter by getting Dragon if we left it, just because of the death timings. I mean, if they died first and we're having to run back and recall, we might not be on the map to stop them from doing Dragon. It's a fire dragon. It's a huge deal. So I got the River Crab on the way out, knowing that my team wouldn't be able to stop that. I could keep jungling because Zac has got great sustain. But if I had recalled like my team did, their team probably would have just rushed the Dragon. I mean, you saw them like go in the area and immediately check to see if we were doing Dragon and consider doing it themselves. So that was probably on both teams' minds at that moment in time, and for good reason. It was the right call. Like, we were the winning team on that bot lane skirmish, but we were also going to be the team that was going to come back on the map later as a team. So if you win a skirmish like that, but you're getting out too late, your recalls are slow, the enemy team could definitely take Rift Herald or Dragon or even push your towers in. So I haven't gone back yet. I'm sitting on probably a lot more gold, 2,200. Missed my E there. I think I was out of range. I was trying to full cast it, and Olaf read the play really well and is counter ganking it. Unfortunately, it's nearly impossible to stop an Olaf from killing your AD carry this early when you don't have enough damage, because you just can't, you know, his ultimate, he's immune to CC. So we try to beat him off of the Ezreal, but Ezreal is just dead here. Ends up being a 1-for-1. Both junglers were in the right place. We had seen Olaf like on this ward clearing it, so we knew he was clearing bot side. He was in the area. We were jumping from a pink ward. The only mistake that I made really was just not hitting my E. I mean, we're level 9 now, but Zac's E has such a long radius that you want to make sure that the bush you're camping in is going to be close enough that even if they suddenly start moving back, anticipating your team moving forward because they see you're ganking, you're still, you know, able to E behind them and hit them. It's kind of rough because as Zac, like if you hit your E, the play is probably going to work. If you miss it, sometimes you'll lose kills because you're missing it. So we lost vision on Dragon again. Their team's pretty good at doing that. Our Rumble got really nice vision on their red. I mean, all these skirmishes that we've been winning, Rumble's been also winning the top lane matchup even more so than before. And it's creating even more pressure that we're going to use to our advantage. So just because Dragon's up doesn't mean that we should immediately do it, because we also have to respect what our team is doing. Rumble is like pushing really deep on top lane, getting really nice vision, which is allowing him to pressure their jungler. It gets to a point where if you get enough pressure on the map, like 13 minutes in, you can simply like start farming their jungle as a jungler and start making plays deeper and deeper. Because once you shut off their jungler's source of income, you're starving out one person in their team that will get really weak. Like the easiest person to probably starve out in the game right now is the jungler, because his main source of income, it comes from things that you can just take. Like you can just stop him from being able to farm, and that's kind of what we're doing here. Like we might not have taken his red, but we're slowing him down, and now he's gonna die because he tried to fight back, and my team got there. I was on my way, but because I got the word on Dragon to make sure they weren't doing it, the very same moment we realized where the Olaf was, we could have been there, but we definitely wanted to make sure that they weren't doing Dragon at that point in time, because it's a Fire Dragon. I mean, you value Fire Dragon more than any other dragon in the game right now. Nice flash from Lissandra. We should have known that she had flash up and just, you know, saved our E ability until after she flashed. I tanked the tower. Probably, I could have tanked one more hit, but it would have been really close leaving afterwards. My pass was back up, but I mean, we have so many people diving that Lissandra that it was very basic and easy to do without tanking to the last drop. Because you'll see some people miscalculate and die under the tower because they took too many tower hits. I'm going to talk about this Fizz's build real quick because it might look pretty troll, but I'll talk about why it's actually pretty good. Maybe not 3 Dark Seals, but 2 is good enough. It works really well because Dark Seal, the actual scaling ability power from, and they're going to do Dragon here. We made a huge mistake by basically stalling our recall. I think we've been sitting on, what do we have? I guess we went back and got Cinderhulk. I forgot to talk about that. But Fizz like was recalling an awkward moment. Rumble was top. Ezreal was like coming bot lane, but their bot lane was able to get here, and they just had more people on the map, so they're actually going to get the Fire Dragon. And this is not necessarily a mistake on my end solely. Even though I'm kind of low here, I could have just smited the red and be pretty healthy and use the next smite to contest the dragon. It's more of a team mistake. Like, because we were making plays deeper and deeper into the jungle when these objectives are still up, we risked like being on that awkward backing time where their team is like out and about, like all healthy, and we have people going back one by one. So I go in for a steal attempt. I mean, the Fire Dragon is definitely worth a steal attempt if you've got flash up, because it's just that valuable. I'm going to talk about the timing on this. So I start the channel. I think what threw me off is because Ezreal ulted it, and then Jhin, I believe, bursted it as well. So it's about 1400. I didn't. That was such an early Ezreal ult. It did, you know, a bit of damage to Bard, and it got it lower. But I definitely miscalculated my jump, because you see it jump from about 1100 to 700 from Jhin, and like there's not enough time for my E to scale up to jump in at this moment in time. But this is when I would want to jump in. Like, this is the moment where I'd be wanting to hit the dragon, W, and smite at the same time. I could steal it. But the Ezreal actually kind of threw me off a little bit, because, you know, at some point when it gets low, Jin's going to be bursting it with his 4th auto. And then Olaf also has an E that's true damage that he can combo with the smite. So it was around, you know, 900 that I'm looking to jump in and just try to full combo, since my, you know, E ability is doing about 280 plus whatever small amount of ability power you have, which shouldn't be very much, plus your W, which is capped damage versus monsters. But basically, try to, you know, don't jump in like when it's below your smite threshold, but a little bit above it, and just try to full combo with your abilities, putting it in range that your smite can kill it. Because my smite was like 600 for that, but yeah. Anyways, we're just covering a lot of stuff this game. Clear my jungle. Instead of going to the next part of the jungle right away, there's a free lane to pressure. We don't have a great mid laner for sieging, but if they have bad recall timings, like we just got to kill Lissandra, I believe, with Fizz, this is a good time to pressure. Like, we could be farming right now, but we can also be getting hits on the tower, like being with our team, protecting our team, And being in this area, whereas like I could be like, you know, farming this side because these camps are up. But if my team's going to be pushing, you need to be with them. You need to be like picking up the pieces when they get caught and killed, protecting them. So if your team is out and about sieging, you shouldn't be doing jungle camps unless, you know, for some reason the tower is free and no one's going to contest it. But even then, ooh, that was, oh man, that Rumble could have been so good if he didn't throw it behind them. If the Rumble had actually just thrown it like where they were, we could have just wiped this fight so hard. We're so far ahead that these skirmishes are still just so great. I think Rumble was anticipating a huge, just like, retreat from the enemy team, but their teleport was coming at the same moment. I was really low. We had already lost Thresh. We had thrown a lot of our resources just to get out before the Rumble showed up, but he's fed enough that if we had like used everything right here, if he just like ulted from here to there or like there or there, oh man, it could have been amazing. He ults behind them like thinking, oh, you know, this gen's just going to fucking book it out of here. I'm going to ult behind him. He's going to run. He still does a ton of damage, but you see how low they got. It was possible that we could have turned it around. So this is a pretty big throw from us. This will happen when these huge skirmishes come about because, you know, one person getting caught before the fight starts, your team still stays committed, huge turnaround, lots of shutdowns happen. So they get a lot of shutdown gold, but they're not healthy enough just to like keep pushing. So they decided to go do Rift Herald, and I kind of suspected this because they weren't pushing the mid lane in, and no one on our team was really capable of defending. So it's like you're thinking in your head, okay, they're pretty low. If they're not pushing up, they're either recalling or they're doing an objective like Dragon, Rift Herald, or they're going to farm the side lanes. We didn't see any of them go towards top or bottom quite yet through the vision that we had. So I just assumed, hey, you know, the next best objective for them to get right now is Rift Herald. Dragon's not up. They went towards this bush, so they could be recalling there or they could be on the Rift Herald. So I went to go get vision. It was very clear that they were doing it. If I jumped in to try to go for a steal, not worth it. I would just be an extra death. I really don't think it's a good idea to always go for steals on objectives unless they're either, you know, Fire Dragons, Baron, or like Elder Dragon, or, you know, something that has like a huge turnaround for your team. And I really wouldn't do it unless I had like flash up and I could potentially get out. Rift Herald is really cool though, because if I were to steal it and get the last hit on the Rift Herald, only the team who secures the Rift Herald can pick up the buff. I don't know if a lot of players know that, but you can, you know, just because the buff drops doesn't mean anyone can get it. Only the team that actually gets the last hit on the Rift Herald can pick up the buff. There was a game this week where someone on my team died running to get the Rift Herald buff because we had left it for him, and he assumed the enemy team could take it, so he like ran past their team and like flashed on it to pick it up, and I was like, wait, dude, you could have just waited. They can't get it. And he was like, oh, my bad. I was like, okay. Well, not everyone knows that, but now some more people do. All right, so we're playing towards our strong side. We had our Fizz pushing bot. I was closer to top side. I'd done the River Crab during the time frame. We had really good vision. I wanted even better vision. So I come in here because Rumble's strong enough that if he pushes up and Pantheon's defending this tower, we could potentially dive him, or I could stop Rumble from dying by being in the area, scouting, just maybe counter ganking if they were trying to make you gank top side. I don't know why this Pantheon did this, but he basically like gave us a free kill here by like going towards the bush I was in and then coming back, and then in this play he went back in. Good Rumble ultimate there. But we were able to create a kill just because we were in the right place at the right time. A dude made a misplay. If we're in our jungle right now farming, we would not have gotten that kill. So we're pressing our advantage. That's really what I want to get across here. One of the big differences between, you know, Diamond, Master, and Challenger is Challenger players will know what to do with their advantage a bit more than Master and Diamond players, and they'll press their advantage. So they'll do better when they're ahead, and they'll know what to do to be ahead and stay ahead. And these are like the things that you want to be doing. I mean, like grouping is like definitely a, you know, duh, you want to group guys, but it's about grouping when you have the advantage, grouping at the right moments, being at the right place at the right time. These skirmishes are going to happen whether you're there or not. Will sometimes decide who wins the game when you're jungling, because it can be really tempting to like just your jungle camps are up. Okay, guys, I'm going to be incapacitated for the next minute. I got to go farm every jungle camp. But there reaches a point when you're jungling, especially as a tank jungler, where you don't need to get any stronger. If your carries are strong enough, you just got to be that front line for them. You don't need to farm anymore. You and your team just stick together as a cohesive unit, and you're the shield. You're the person that needs to try to soak their stuns and their cooldowns, and just keep your carries alive. That's like all you got to do. Being a tank is like so basic. Being a carry is a little bit trickier, but basically being a tank jungler right now is probably one of the best things to be in the jungle, because you don't need a lot of income to be strong for your position. You know, you're not supposed to be one-shotting people. If you're trying to get like enough gold on Zac to build AP and one-shot their AD carry, you're gonna need way more gold than just to be like, you know, a Cinderhulk, Randuin's, Kindle Gem, Zac with 87 farm, and just, you know, you just like jump in, do your CC, get someone caught and killed. They try to focus and kill you, they can't. Your carries kill them. Something that probably should be discussed though is that you know, what do you do, Valkrin, when you play in silver? You're playing a tank, but your damage dealers don't know what the fuck to do. It's a little bit different, but it's still largely the same. If you have zero faith in your team at all, then you're pretty much going to hurt your chances of winning no matter what elo you're in. You just still need to protect them as much as you can, and you can definitely still carry as tanks. I mean, you can build like Leandries as Zac. You can get to the point where if you're strong enough as Zac, picking up those loose kills here and there, and you know, farming up a little bit more maybe than I did this game, you definitely can be high enough level that your base damage from your abilities and maybe having Leandries is enough to kill their carries. So you can definitely go like full carry mode if necessary. If my team was like not as fed as they were and I didn't trust them as much, then I probably would be farming a little bit more just to make sure that if my team starts to throw, I'm like too strong to die and I can do whatever I want. So if you have like zero faith in your team, and it'll happen sometimes, like if it's deserving, like their team is just better than your team or something like that, but you got them fed early because you're just a godlike jungler, then, you know, maybe farm a little bit more than I did this game, and when there's a little bit more downtime, pick up the lane farm if possible. I tried to stop Olaf from killing the Fizz, but I mean, Fizz has like no armor, and well, it doesn't bode well against a really fed tank, because their Olaf had a lot of kills this game, and Fizz is like class cannon build. Their team is stacking a bit of MR, so Ezreal's having a field day right now against like a basically zero armor team. Just securing Dragon here. I stopped doing as much commentary because we're talking about more general things. Once you see a lead like this in Challenger, you can kind of guess that unless the losing team somehow secures an ace and gets Baron, there's not going to be a turnaround. It's still possible, but unlikely. See it happen less than 10% of the time. But if you're in losing end, 1 in 10 are still good odds if, you know, the difference between winning and losing a game is just simply playing it out. And the difference between, you know, being promoted or demoted to certain elos comes from one game sometimes. You should definitely play games out that aren't completely decided. I would say you generally want to play a game out until Baron is taken. Like, the first Baron and first inhibitor will almost always decide the win in Challenger. Very rarely, like less than 10%. Maybe like 5% of the time you see a turnaround in a Challenger game from a team that gets the first Baron and inhibitor. 95% of the time they win. So in a game like this where Baron and the inhib, they're still up, the enemy team still has a chance. Like, we could just completely screw the pooch in one of these all-ins, because we're still getting kind of low in these fights. I mean, just because we're winning them doesn't mean that if under the right circumstances, in the right ordering, we walk under the tower and all die at the same time. But the enemy team forfeits, which is great for us. They didn't want to play it out. I don't 100% blame them, but I just wanted to lay it out there that it was still possible to come back in this. But not everyone thinks it's a good use of their time, and that's okay, because you can do it whatever you want with your time. Alright, so we covered a lot of things this game. We ended 2-0-15, pretty respectable score for a tank. You don't need to take the kills. Our top laner ended with 9 kills, mid lane 9 kills, ADC 9 kills. Support took no kills. Good job, support. Give those kills to the carries. If they know what to do with that gold, it's a better place for the gold to be. We did lose the first Fire Dragon. We did lose 1 tower this game. You should never really expect an absolutely perfect game in like bronze, silver, or gold. But the higher the ladder you get, the more opportunities you'll have to have like perfect games where you and your team will just, you might not have like the perfect mechanically skilled players, but with the advantage that you generate, you try to give that to your team, and they try to give it to other people on the team, and you're kind of passing on this advantage. Like, okay, you go, like say we were able to get first blood on bot lane, that could mean that we could do a follow up bot lane gank and get dragon, get the tower. Once their tower's gone, our bot lane and me, as a jungler, could maybe focus and 3-man roam mid or top. In Korea right now, one of the most popular strategies is when the bot lane tower goes down, the AD carry goes top lane. It's really weird, but it catches a lot of people off guard because you usually send your bot lane to mid, but top lane is usually more volatile and easier to change the outcome of. And so it makes sense. Like you can try all these cool things, but the main principle is that once you generate an advantage for yourself, you try to get that advantage onto your team as well. So any sort of leeway you get, you try to translate it to a team advantage. That's so much better than just putting it on yourself, because even as like a carry or a tank or an AD carry, like there are situations where if you're the only fed person on your team, the enemy team only has one person to kill and they win the whole fight usually. So diversifying that gold onto more carries makes it insanely difficult to overcome, because that one person that's fed could make a mistake, throw, and then there goes the game. But if everyone on your team is strong, then the odds of losing are significantly lower than if only one or two people are fed. It's just something to think about. Diversify. Diversify your investments in life, money-wise, and also diversify your advantage in-game, money-wise. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'll try to do more of them in the future. I stream every day, Monday to Friday, 2 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time Zone. And I'll see you guys in my next video or on my stream. Thanks for watching.